The draft is finally over, so that means it's time to take a look at how I think the teams did. And we're going to start off with the AFC North. I'm going to explain my grading a little bit before we get started. So you'll see it on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. Now, a 1 is that I absolutely hated the pick. I thought the value was bad. I didn't like the player. I didn't like the fit. There's a myriad of reasons of why a pick could be a 1. A 2 is I wasn't a fan of the pick, but I can see what the team did there and why they wanted to get that player. A 3 is I really don't have a strong opinion either way. Either I liked the player, thought it was good value, or overall I just thought the value was right about where I had it pegged. A 4 is that I really liked the pick. I thought that it made sense, scheme-wise, value-wise. It was not, an excellent pick. It didn't break my skill at all, but it was a good, solid move, and the team will be better overall for it. And the 5 is I absolutely love it. Everything from the value to what went into the pick is A+ across the board. Maybe not A+ across the board, but really high across the board. And I feel really good about what the team did there and the player they got, how they're going to fit in the system, the value they got him at, all of those things. So the 5s are going to be seen a little less than some of the other numbers. I tried to save them for picks that I really, 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 really loved. And I ended up giving out a few more than I anticipated, but especially for the AFC North. But I found that I really liked the AFC North overall and what they were able to do with their drafts, especially in the limited amounts for every team outside of the Ravens. But and then I did an aggregate overall score. Now, with some of the players, and you'll see it with the Ravens, I didn't get to watch a decent amount of their class. They just ended up taking guys that I didn't get to. I watched 259 this year, and sometimes you're not able to watch every single guy that gets drafted. So for those teams, their scores will be a little bit different than, if I were grading somebody's entire class, just because there's more guys for me to choose from. Like you'll see eventually with the Steelers, like I only ended up being able to give 4 guys grades out of their 7-person class, I think is what it ended up being. And I was a fan of all of those picks, or most of those picks, and so they ended up getting a pretty good score. So it's not a perfect science, but it gives me an idea of how I felt about the class overall, and it gives me a better way to numerically rank them. So all of that out of the way, let's get into it. The first team, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I thought the Ravens had a really, really solid draft, specifically with their first 2 picks. I thought getting Malachi Starks at pick 27, in my opinion, he's a top 15 player in the class. I had him at number 12 overall. To fit in that system is phenomenal. Now, Malachi Starks, in order for him to work, is going to have to play deep safety, right? He was either going to have to play split zone, or he was going to have to be a single high center fielder. And that is exactly how I anticipate the Baltimore Ravens to use him. They used a lot of 3 safety when they played last year, and I anticipate him to be on the field quite a bit as a rookie, and I think that he's going to make a lot of plays as well. I was a big fan of him, especially his 2023 tape at Georgia, and then, he didn't have the best 2024 season, but I know it's still in there, right? You don't start on a Kirby Smart defense in the secondary unless you have the chops, right? You have the mental capacity to play the position, and also the physical capabilities to play it as well as at a high level at that. And I think Malachi Starks is going to be one of those players that you look back and how did he fall, right? Same with Kyle Hamilton. And then their second pick is Mike Green. Now, they got Mike Green because of an off-the-field issue, the sexual assault allegations against him. I believe there are 2, and a lot of teams just didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to touch him. But he's a fantastic player, and it is a tough seesaw to balance, right? What are you willing to pay for that player, essentially? What does he give you on the field versus what is the off the field? And we'll talk about this more with another player in one of the other classes. With Mike Green, in my opinion, he's a top 10 player in this class. On the field, he's fantastic. He's got explosiveness. He's got great hands. He's got bend. He's got power. He plays the run well, in my opinion. He does all of those things. But the off-the-field stuff is serious. And when he signed with Virginia, it was under the notion that he was not going to get – there was a no-tolerance policy. He was not going to be accused of sexual assault again because he was already accused of it once. And then he was. And so they kicked him off the team. He ends up going to play at Marshall. There is some, I've never talked to the guy and I don't know him, but there is some pattern there that definitely makes you concerned for the potential of that stuff happening again. Now, since that incident, there hasn't been any other reports. So, maybe he is just on a new path, and that would be awesome if he is. But for now, that is why he dropped. But I'm still going to give it a 5 because he's my number 9 overall player in the class, and I think what he's going to do for the Baltimore Ravens is going to make them an elite team overall or elite defense overall. He's going to contribute to that, and the on-the-field play is going to be, I think he could challenge for Rookie of the Year this year on the defense side of the ball. I think he'll be right up there with Abdul Carter in terms of sacks. I think his tackle for loss production will be up there as well. You get him on the field, he's going to make plays. And the Baltimore Ravens got him in the second round because of this. And they're dealing with their own sexual assault allegations with Justin Tucker. And you see there with Tyler Loop, they went actually out and got a kicker, and Tucker hasn't been playing well anyway in the first place. So, yeah. You know how the NFL is, right? If you're a great player, they're more willing to let things slide, or as if you have off the field antics as well as not being a great player, they're going to cut you without a second thought. Yeah, not saying it's right. It's the way the NFL operates. And then they went and got Emory Jones in the third round. Now, I was not a fan of Emory Jones when I watched him. I thought that he had super poor technique, and he didn't move his feet well. He wasn't a great athlete overall. And I thought he really, really struggled, especially against SEC edge rushers. And that's kind of what you see in the NFL on a week-to-week basis. There's a chance that gets cleaned up, but I didn't think he was a good enough baseline athlete to be picked in the third round. I think a 6th or 7th round grade on him. I can't quite remember. I just didn't think that he had the chops to be a starting right tackle in the NFL or a left tackle. Now, if he played guard, I could see maybe a little bit more of an opportunity there, but to pick him in the third round for me is a bad pick. I did not like it, and I don't think he's gonna play out after the first contract with the Ravens. Now, their 4th round pick, Teddy A. Buchanan, I love the player. I just didn't anticipate them taking him in the 4th round. I had a 6th round grade on him, and I thought that I would be okay if a team took him in the 5th. I thought that he was good, good enough ish to be like a late 5th round pick, somewhere in that early 6th round. Somebody got him in the 6th round, I'd be, that's his value. That's where he should go. But they took him in the 4th round, and this is before the comp picks. They got him the 27th overall pick in the 4th round. It's just a little too early for me, and I really do like the player, and I think he could be a lot of fun in this defense. I just cannot get behind taking him in the 4th round, and so it gets a 2. I didn't watch Carson Vincent. He was literally the next offensive lineman that I was going to watch. I just ran out of time. So also Alabama A&M tape is not something that comes easy to me. So that would have been a hard eval to find. Bahal Cohn, great player out of Western Michigan, from what I've heard. I didn't get to watch him outside of the few times I watched Mac gameplay during the actual season. But I'm not watching for tape there. It's you're just watching to enjoy the game. Tyler Loop is a kicker. I mean, normally I would give kickers a 1. Why are you drafting a kicker? And just take him in free agency. It is what it is. LeJonte Webster, I was planning on getting to. I watched those Colorado wide receivers enough, I think, to be able to give an opinion. But since I didn't actually focus on him, I wasn't going to actually give it a grade. I think LeJonte Webster is a good player, for what he gives you, which is a big body. Like, he's a player that will make some really difficult catches, but he will also drop the easiest catches, known to man. His hands are very, very inconsistent, but I think he can be if he shores that up, he can be a nice downfield threat for an offense that just needs a little bit more explosiveness. But it's about the down to down consistency for him, and if he can't have that, he's not going to stick around too long. But in the 6th round, if I had watched him, I probably would have given this a 3. That's kind of about where I would expect him to go. Now, Aeneas Peebles, I was a little bit surprised. I was lower on him, I think, than what consensus was, and I still was shocked that he made it to the 6th round because of his pass rush upside alone. What he's able to do as a pass rusher because of that explosiveness off the line of scrimmage is, he can push the pocket a little bit. He can get to the quarterback on quick wins. So I was a little bit surprised he went in the 6th round rather than the 5th or even the 4th. But he is a not great run defender, I guess, to put it plainly. He struggles to anchor and dig in. He's just not very big, and offensive tackles and that are down blocking, or guards that are trying to scoot him out, they just do it so easily, and he really just struggles against power. He'll get his quick wins and he'll make a play in the backfield, but I really just think that he's going to be kind of restricted to that 3rd down pass rush specialist role, unless he can become a lot stronger at the point of attack, taking on blocks. But I did like the value overall. I had him much higher on my big board. He was like my DT 15 or something like that, and I think that in this range, you're getting a really good specialist player that can make some splash plays for you. Robert Longer being the corner out of Rutgers, I was kind of surprised he fell this far. I thought that he had the good physical traits, length, size to play well, and I thought his technique was solid. I had a 5th round grade on him. I had a 4th round grade on him, and for him to go in the 6th round, I thought was terrific value, and I think that he can be exactly the type of corner that the Baltimore defense wants. Can be a little bit more physical at the line of scrimmage. He's not going to be, a sticky corner in coverage, but I think he'll give you enough to be a good player. And then I didn't get to Garrett Dollinger. Overall, it's a 3.5 grade from me. I thought that it was a really solid class. I thought they got 2 impact players immediately. And I think Teddy Buchanan can also be a role player for them as well. I really enjoyed watching him play. And then, Aeneas Peebles and Robert Longer will be good specialist players for them, that they got down the board with good value. The only one I really wasn't a fan of, just in general, was Emory Jones. I was just not a big Emory Jones fan, and for him to go in the 3rd round, it's way too early for me. If he went in the 6th, I would have been okay with it, but it was just way too early, in that 3rd round. So. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals had one of my least favorite drafts in the entire league, as you can probably see by the grades I gave during the thing. And Shamar Stewart was very close to being a 1. But I understand why you go and get a guy like that. 16 is super early for me. Like, I had him as my 44th player, I think, on my big board. The vision is that one day he can maybe be an elite pass rusher with the tools and, traits, because he's got the traits. So you need him to get that technique down. That's a big if, right? If he can do this, then he'll be worth the pick. Well, if he can't, then basically all you got was a run-stopping edge rusher that's going to be good against the run, don't get me wrong, but he gives you little to no pass rush upside. Now, he can push the pocket a little bit, but I just didn't love the pick. So I gave it a 2 because I can see the vision, right? I get why they did it. I'm just not a huge fan. And then the next 3 picks, I in my opinion, they just kind of lit them on fire. Based off of value, based off of how I perceived the player. It just didn't make sense, and it didn't really feel like there was a plan in place to get high-impact players. It was more so, hey, let's fill this need because it's a need, right? And the big thing about the draft is that you have to draft for talent. You can't draft for need, because if you draft for need, you end up reaching on players that just aren't very good or are worse than guys you could have had at that spot. If every team was smart, they would draft the best player available. Now, if that also lines up with need, or if there's a player that's a similarly graded player that fits your need better, that's fine. But you just can't look at me and tell me that Demetrius Knight is a top 50 player in this class, because that's how he was picked. He was picked as a top 50 player in this class, and in my opinion, he just wasn't, right? I had him closer to that 100 range. I think that he's a fine player. I think taking him this early is ludicrous. And it just didn't make sense, especially considering that he is an older linebacker. And outside of having good arm length, it seemed like he wasn't really great at anything. He's a solid coverage player. I think he could have been a little bit stronger in the run. But, like, He didn't really give you anything that was like, I can count on that. Well, maybe I'll just skip to Barrett Carter right now because they also took another linebacker. At least Carter can give you, he's elite, not elite, I don't want to use the word elite. He's great at one thing, and that's, his athleticism and his traits to get after the quarterback in a spy type role, right? He is great at that. And so at least with that one, you have something to at least bank on, right? You can count on that. Is he great at everything else? No. Is he good at everything else? Not so much. Like I thought Carter was, he's an undersized linebacker with shorter arms. I didn't think he played the run all that physical. That's something you need to be able to do in the NFL. And I thought his coverage was fine. It didn't really impress me too much. And so again, with Carter, same thing with Knight. It kind of just felt like, and I would have been okay, and Knight wouldn't have been there in the fourth round, but if Knight falls to the third round, which I think there was a pretty good chance that he did, then you're able to get him in the third round. I think it's much better value. Now, if you couldn't get Knight, then I don't think you should reach on Knight for the chance that he's not there in the third round, because I thought there were other good linebackers in this class. A guy like Pooh Paul, who went in like the sixth round. I know why it happened, but he's such a good football player. And I think we forget that when it comes draft time. We forget, hey, watch this guy's tape. Is he a good football player? Yes or no? And it's about the traits. And I get the historical reasons why. There are these thresholds where you tend to see more success than not. If a tackle's got 34-inch arms, he's more likely to succeed than a tackle that's got less than 34-inch arms. I get all that stuff. We have to talk about good football players. And I thought that at linebacker, specifically, Pooh Paul was a better linebacker than both Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter. And he went 2 rounds later than Carter, 4 rounds later than Demetrius Knight. That's ridiculous to me. And then Fairchild in between them, sandwiched. I was not a Fairchild fan. And you'll see this. I wasn't a huge fan in general of the Georgia interior offensive line. I thought they played with high leverage. They didn't exactly have great play strength. I thought they were great in pass coverage, pass protection, but they didn't really do it for me in the run game. And with Fairchild, it was like he's almost a negative in the run game. He just does not move guys. And as a pass protector, he's fine, but to take him in the third round, I would have been okay if you took him in the fifth round. I would have been fine. I think I have a 7th round grade on him. I would have been fine if you took him in the 5th round. That would have been a 2. It still would have been a super big reach, but in the third day, especially in those last 3 rounds, I'm a little bit more lenient in the picks I'm gonna hammer or the one. But to take him in the third round when there are other interior offensive linemen on the board that I thought were much better and fit the Bengals systems just as well. We're talking about Miles Frazier, who went in the 5th round. Miles Frazier gives you the same pass protector. He's just as good, if not better, as a pass protector. And in my opinion, is a better run blocker as well. He's got heavier hands. He has a little bit more power in general. So I thought that was a miss. As for Jalen Rivers in the 5th round, it sounds like he's going to play guard. He's got a little bit of positional flexibility. I thought that was a good pick. I really didn't feel it was good or bad, but I lean good. I think he's a solid player. You took him in the 5th round. That's good value in my opinion. There's not much else to say about that. That was one of their 2 good picks in my opinion in this class. Taj Brooks in the 6th round I thought was phenomenal. I liked Taj Brooks a lot. I think he was my running back 10. His ability to see the field. He's got great jump cuts. He just wiggles in and out of traffic, finds the open space. He's not exactly a burner, but he'll make guys miss in the open field. He's not going to be a huge asset in the passing game. Doesn't mean he can't, give you a couple of catches here and there. I love that value in the 6th round. It's not that they necessarily needed running back with Chase Brown there. I mean, you do always need a little bit of depth, and I think that outside of Chase Brown, that was their, he's going to be their RB2, which I think is a good RB2. But overall, I thought it was a 2. I just did not like this Bengals draft. I thought with an opportunity and we talk about this with the Bengals a lot. You have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. And every single year you do nothing to put them in a place to succeed through the draft, through cheap contracts. And there are guys that could be, instant day one impact players that you also can take, because it felt like they didn't really know whether they wanted to take proven starters or if they wanted to take chances on guys this draft. It felt like they were going back and forth between that. With Shamar Stewart, it's a projection. With Demetrius Knight, it's a proven player, right? We know what Demetrius Knight is. He's not going to get any better than what he is right now. With Fairchild, it's a proven player, right? He's not going to get any better than he is right now. And he might get a little bit better, but he's not going to be substantially better than he is right now. With Carter, it's a projection. Like, you want him to be a great linebacker. He's got the athletic tools. He might not, have the length and the strength, but you're hoping that he can get better. With Jalen Rivers, it's a projection, right? With Taj Brooks, we know what he is. And so they kind of went all down the board and were like, here, let's just throw darts and we'll take some proven guys. We'll take some projection guys. And, maybe that's the best way to do it, right? Take your shots here and there. But I just thought that there wasn't really a great plan overall. And I was a little bit disappointed in a draft that felt so important with the contracts that you just signed of getting good impact talent that was cheap. They did a poor job of supporting Joe Burrow. Now, what I will say is with Dylan Fairchild, at least Joe Burrow will be able to be kept clean on the inside, because I do think Fairchild will have to start, given what the Bengals have on their interior offensive line and how Joe is running for his life and getting cracked every other play, every other time he drops back. So, I think they did get better in the passing game on the offensive side of the ball. Simply with the addition of Fairchild, and so you could mark that as a at least a moderate success, but I didn't think it made them better long term. I think it's a quick fix, not necessarily a long term fix to extend that window. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns, and I was a big fan of Cleveland's draft for the most part. Right, there was a few picks in here you see that I didn't necessarily agree with, but I thought as a whole there was good process here, there was good value. And they did a fantastic job setting themselves up for success next year as well with that first pick, right? So after the first day, I made a video and gave grades for that first round, and I kind of killed the Browns for trading back from Travis Hunter, because he's a once in a lifetime prospect, right? You're not going to see a guy that can play both sides of the ball the way that he can. Now, I don't think he will at the NFL level. Like, I don't think it's possible. Install wise, you need so much brain power and brain capacity to know what's happening on both sides of the ball. And then on top of that, it's a lot of plays. Like, it's a lot in practice. You aren't going to be able to just go out and out-athlete everybody. Like, yes, you are an elite athlete, but there are other elite athletes in the NFL that you just didn't see playing in the Big 12, right? Even if he had played in the SEC, he wouldn't have seen those athletes. So they trade back to 5. And I'm like, okay, this can go a couple of ways. If you get Mason Graham, you're in a good spot. And they ended up getting Mason Graham, right? And so he was my number 3 player in this class. Now, there was a substantial grade difference between Hunter and Graham for me, but it's still a top 3 player. And I think that getting that first for next year and setting yourself up to be able to go get a quarterback if you deem that class worthy of it, I think next year's class is going to be better than this one. I'm not sure how much better, but there are a couple guys I like in that class. And I don't think Arch ends up coming out. I really do think that he stays another year. But like Lenora Sellers, who can possibly come out, Sawyer Robertson, who can possibly come out, Cade Klubnik, who has to come out, Garrett Nussmeier, who has to come out. Like, there are some guys that I think would, be. I think Cam would probably still be QB1, but they're right up there, and they're first round picks, right? So you trade back, you get that extra first round pick, but you also pick up who I think can be an absolutely game wrecker in terms of an interior defensive lineman. That pass rush with him and Myles Garrett is going to be fantastic, right? Like, the 2 MGs are going to wreak havoc on offensive lines. The Carson Schwarzenegger pick was a little bit early for me, but since I liked the player so much, I think I had him at like 49, so it's only a 16 pick reach. I was fine with it. I think he's a really good player. He's going to make plays for you in the run game. He's a good coverage linebacker as well. He does have to work on his consistent play strength a little bit more, so he can be, a down-to-down player in the run game at the NFL level. But I think he's got a great base foundation to build off of, and I think that, given what, the seriousness of JOK's injury, what that is, he can be a goodwill replacement down the road. Taking Quinshon Judkins where they did, listen, I get why you took Quinshon Judkins. He is your heir apparent to Nick Chubb. I just wouldn't have stacked the two running backs that way. I love Dylan Sampson in the 4th round. I thought, I had the two running backs graded. I had the exact same grade on them. They were like my 76th and 77th player, or 73rd and 74th. I love Sampson in the 4th. I wasn't a huge fan of Quinshon Judkins as the 4th pick in the 2nd round. Now, I would have flipped that. I would have taken TreVeyon Henderson in that 2-4 spot. He was still on the board. I think he's a much better speed back, your home run hitter than Dylan Sampson. I think he's a fantastic, and talk about pass protection and giving you some of what Quinshon does. So you take him there, but then you can also take like Cam Scatterbo in the 4th round. Like he was still on the board. There were other power backs on the board in the 4th round that you could have gotten, where if you've taken TreVeyon in the 2nd round, you're still getting a great player. As is, I thought that the Quinshon pick was I liked the Dylan Sampson pick. So I think they still come out at a 3, but had they taken TreVeyon and had they taken Scatterbo, I would have probably given them both 4s, just based off of how I feel about those players and the value they got them at. Now, Harold Fannin, at pick 3 in the 3rd round was right around where I thought he would go. That's where I had him on my big board, was 60th. I gave it a 4 because I just think that this offense needs that kind of playmaker. Now, is he a great athlete? No. He runs about as stiff as a board, but he makes plays consistently. He's got good hands. He's not going to be a ball winner, but he's going to be able to go over the middle and make plays. Will he work at the next level? I lean yes, but he doesn't have the athletic profile. He's got the production profile, and he did it against superior athletes and competition at the college level, right? Like he was a big reason that Bowling Green was in those Texas A&M and Penn State games. So I really like what he brings, the juice to the offense, especially, with David getting a little up in age, having to deal with a lot of injuries last year. I think that this was a good pick. He also he's going to play a little bit of, he's not going to play David's position. He's going to be more of a big slot H-back move, fullback type position. You're just going to try and get him the ball and let him work, right? I like I was indifferent on the Dylan Gabriel pick. I had a 4th round grade on him. You take him at the back end of the 3rd round. I mean, not quite with the comp picks, but you take him at the end of the 3rd round. I think that he works really well in this in Stefanski's offense. He's great on the move. That's kind of where he made his money at Oregon. They had a lot of designed rollouts for him, a lot of boots, and I think he reads them well. He plays them well, and so he fits that offense very well. I liked the pick. I liked the value, and a lot of people are going to clown the Browns for this, but I do think that, there's a chance that he is their starting quarterback at some point this season, given how well he can play in the system. He's not going to blow you away with his arm strength, but he does have, pretty good accuracy. He can push the ball out there. He let guys run under it. We saw that time and time again at Oregon. I just think that this was, in the 3rd round, it was a good time to take him. I just gave it a 3 because it was a little bit of a reach based off where I had him, but not too much. So we already talked about Dylan Sampson, and then we get into the Shedeur pick. And the reason why I gave this a 2, even though I had him as a 3rd round grade and, I had him as my 102nd player or whatever, is because the process felt very flawed. Right, you already take the quarterback in the 3rd round, Dylan Gabriel, one that clearly fit your system better, which is why you took him. And then you trade up to get this guy, and the picture that they showed after the pick was announced, right? And it's becoming pretty infamous at this point that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are sitting there, and they're like, and everybody else in the room is like golf clapping. They're not excited at all, stone-faced. It very clearly reeks of ownership stepping in, going over their heads, using their ownership power to basically demand that they trade up and take Shedeur. Do I think Shedeur is a good quarterback? No. I don't think he's a good quarterback. He's a fine quarterback. I think he could start in the NFL at some point in his career. I don't think he can be a long-term starter. I just don't think he's got the juice. I don't think he plays well enough in an NFL offense. He doesn't play on time. Like, that's what Dylan Gabriel does. He plays on time. He goes where he puts the ball where it needs to be. Shedeur does not, right? He's late to throws. He needs to see guys be open before he actually throws them. He doesn't play with anticipation. And then he also doesn't have an NFL level arm, right? What he is good at is breaking tackles or breaking sacks, getting out of the way, and then making something happen after that. He can extend plays. Now, he's not a playmaker in the sense that his legs aren't going to get him out of trouble. It's going to be his ability to break sacks, right? But you take him and nobody's happy about it. It just overshadows the entire day of the draft. It felt like a manufactured draft pick. And, we've seen Jimmy Haslam do this before, where he steps in and wants a quarterback. And what happened was the Deshaun Watson trade, right? And they give him this fully guaranteed contract. Doesn't work out. At the time, some people thought it was going to, because the last time we had seen Deshaun, he was playing MVP level caliber football. And clearly after the ACL injury, he was not. But now you have 5 quarterbacks, including Deshaun, on the roster. Now, Deshaun's not going to play in this year. He's probably going to be on IR. So you have 4 quarterbacks between Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur is very, very much the worst for that system of the 4. I legitimately think Dylan Gabriel will win the starting spot at some point this season. And that could be because of his own play, because whoever did start the season, isn't playing well enough. And I just think it's kind of a lost season for the Browns. And they're going to be a little bit of a circus. Not like they aren't for the most part already. They get clowned on quite a bit, but this is just going to add a lot more unnecessary attention that I'm sure that the coaching staff didn't want, the fans didn't want. I don't know. Maybe Browns fans like this pick. I know my Browns fans that I'm friends with are a little bit split on it. But overall, as the class is a 3-3, if they just didn't take Shedeur and kept their late round picks, this could have been even better, right? But as it is a 3-3. I thought it was a really good draft. I think it sets them up well for the future. And then 2026 is going to be that big one where they use those 2 first-round picks, however they see fit, to really go for a push in Miles, last couple of seasons. Steelers are the last ones up, and as I told you, I just didn't get to enough of their class. I only watched 4 out of their 7 players, and so they get a really good grade. It's a 4.25. And I don't think it would have been had I watched all those guys. Those guys are, like, at minimum, they're probably 3s, right? So if you just average that out, and I didn't want to do the thing where every player I didn't watch is just a 3, because that felt a little disingenuous, because I do tend to be higher on some of those late round guys than the consensus. And I'm also a little bit lower on some of the guys. Like, I don't like Yaya Black probably gets a 2 for me. I didn't watch him, right? But taking him in the 5th round, I would have had to really like him in order for that to get there, because I did base the guys I watched based off of the consensus boards, right? So if he was higher up there, then I would have been able to get to him. That was just a long-winded way to say my process. Gave the Steelers a much better grade than I think that they probably should have got, but I'm not going to change it just for one team, right? I think getting Derek Harmon in the first round is fantastic. He was my 21st player in the class. They got him at pick 21. That's good process, right? I like the player. I like the fit. There's just, there's not much else to say about it. He's going to be a good player there for a long time, and he's your Cam Hayward replacement, right? You've been waiting for somebody to take over those reins, once Cam calls it quits, and that's your guy. Derek Harmon's a fantastic player, can rush the passer, can stop the run. He's really dual faceted. He's going to be a fan favorite in Pittsburgh. And then Caleb Johnson's a 5 for me. Caleb Johnson is one of the few players in this class that I thought was so scheme dependent that if a team that wasn't a wide zone team took him, was going to get a 1. If a team did take him, depending on where, and they were a wide zone scheme, it was going to be a 4 or 5, just because of how much I think that Caleb is elite as a wide zone runner. Like, he just plays it so well. He sees it so well. He's a glider. Like, he's just so fun to watch run the football. He is a little bit of a slow starter, so you got to give him that runway if you want him to really break away and break tackles and just get out and run. But he showed the ability to do that, and once he gets going, he's very hard to catch. He showed that a lot at Iowa. I give it a 5 because they got him in the 3rd round. He's my 4th overall running back. I had a early 2nd round grade on him. The Steelers and the Arthur Smith offense run wide zone. Like, this guy is in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year simply because of the wide zone scheme and how much Pittsburgh likes to run the ball. Now, will he win it? Likely not, because Ashton Genty is the only running back in the the Raiders offense, and Pete Carroll loves to run the football. So there's all that you have to deal with as well. But I do think that Caleb Johnson is going to be a super fun player in this offense, and I think he's going to succeed, and he's going to have a good, long career here. In the 4th round, it was Jack Sawyer. It's about where I had him. I think that as a player, he's not going to give you much. He's just a high motor guy. He's got some power, but not. I think his power was a little bit overblown. He's got like zero mass in his lower body. If you just watch it, and I think it was Theo Ash that pointed it out. He said that his calves or his legs are as thick as a yard line. And he showed a picture, and he was right. Like, this guy just does not have a lower body. There's just no power there, and I think that's going to hurt him at the NFL level. But I think he's a good enough baseline floor player. We're taking him in the 4th round. It's fine. Right? I'm not gonna bash you for it. That's the grade I had on him. I think he can still be a solid rotational player. He's just not going to be somebody that goes out there and gets you double-digit sacks or is an elite run stopper. He's going to be a good run stopper. He probably won't give you much of a pass rush just because he doesn't win a lot outside of that. But it was a fine pick. And then I mentioned didn't watch I.L. Black. I gave Will Howard a 5 because he was my QB2, and they got him in the 6th round. Listen, and this is. If you get Will Howard that played in the playoff, that is a potential starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. And he's not going to be any good. He's not going to be a good starter, I should say, not any good. He's going to be like an okay starter. He's going to be an average starter. If you get the Will Howard that we saw, against Michigan State and Penn State, then he's a career backup, right? And so it's about which Will Howard are you getting. Now, that run really seemed like it gave him the confidence in game to be able to make these throws and trust himself, trust his arm. And then he gets to the combine and he's airmailing stuff all over the place. It's like, which guy are we really getting, right? But because of where I had him ranked, and I had him as a mid to late 2nd round grade based off of just being a quarterback, right? And he was like my 80th overall player. Getting him in the 6th round is fantastic value. Right. And so I gave it a 5 because and it's the same reason that Mel Kiper gave Shedeur and the Browns an A+ when they picked him in the 5th round, because Shedeur was his number 1 quarterback. And so if you believe that, you're going to give him a high grade. And so because I believe Will Howard is the 2nd best quarterback in this class, I'm going to give the Steelers a 5 for taking him in the 6th round, which makes their overall grade a 4.25. That's kind of what I was talking about. Like, do they really get a 4.25, which will likely be one of the higher grades, if not the highest grade in my entire class? No, I don't think so. I don't think they had the best draft of everybody, but it was definitely up there. Like, I think they got a lot of impact players, good rotational guys that are going to make their team better in the long run and in the immediate short term. And that's the goal of the draft, right? You want immediate impact help, but you also want to set yourself up long term so that your window doesn't close if you have a window right now, or that you have a new window, when your vets retire and you got these young guys now. So I thought the Steelers did a really good job of setting themselves up for success there. That is all I have for you guys today. I'm going to try to get these out as quickly as possible. Up next will be the AFC South, and then, or not the AFC, the NFC South, and then the NFC West, and then we'll pop back over to the AFC. We'll probably hit the AFC West. There was a lot of fun drafts out in the AFC West that I want to get to as well. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you on the flip. See ya.